she has a young assistant with her today. Thank you, Michelle and family. That's wonderful to see the young people in their language. So that is the first time I've ever heard O Canada performed in Algonquin. So what a very beautiful rendition. I would like to thank you all for the warm welcome we have received here on unceded, unsurrendered Algonquin territory at the opening of your annual powwow. Parks Canada has been allowed to have this short ceremony to commemorate the Mazinaw Pictographs as a National Historic Site of Canada. So my name is Catherine, and I'm responsible for my government job from an area from Lake Huron up to the Quebec border, covering many different territories, and I'm the MC for today's ceremony where we'll be unveiling the plaque. Nous avons plusieurs invités ici avec nous today. So we try to speak at least a sentence of French in these speeches. So we have a number of guests with us today. So on the stage we have Chief Kirby White Duck. Councillor Wendy Jocko is sitting in the audience. And the Chief will be our historical speaker today, and Wendy will be our English language plaque text reader. Michelle Gaudry, who just sang for us, is an Algonquin language teacher with the Aginville and District Public School. And in addition to her beautiful singing voice, she will read the plaque for us later in the Algonquin language. Andre Carl, sitting also in the audience, will be our French plaque text reader today. And representing the Government of Canada is Dr. Richard Alway, who's speaking on behalf of our minister today, and he's chair of the Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada. This is Dr. Alway. So we're here to celebrate an incredible...
I asked Willie Dick to come and also speak on the Mazinaw and give us more teaching on how to pronounce it.
Okay, sorry about that. So joining us also is Willie Dick, who will also be giving a teaching and a proper lesson to us about the pronunciation of these things. So thank you for that. So I'm so glad we're able to gather and recognize and raise awareness amongst Canadians about the amazing culture, history, and identity that the Mazinaw Pictographs present and represent. Unfortunately, past government policies meant many Indigenous voices and stories have been silenced and oppressed as connections to places across the country were severed. And it's part of my job to see that Parks Canada demonstrates leadership in renewing and strengthening our relationship with Indigenous people and reconnections to the land across the continent. Through this ceremony, we are honoring the national significance of the pictographs for Canada today and forever. Any person can nominate a site or a person, a hero or an event to the Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada, And then that is a big task that's undertaken by this group. They make recommendations to the Government of Canada, and they have representatives from every province and territory that looks at these applications to designate places. We have an absolute commitment to look at the 10,000 years of story and history and connection before our more recent commemorations of our shared political, economic, and social history. And Parks Canada helps administer this program, so we're responsible for hosting ceremonies and installing the plaques that commemorate these things. I would now like to invite Chief White Duck to tell us more about the history of the Mazinaw Pictographs.
Thank you. So the unveiling then is of the plaque for the pictographs, which is the Mazinaw Pictographs, that means painting and writing in Algonquin, and the plaque will reflect that. And I think it's important, well, first of all I'll start by saying I think it's important now that the governments are starting to recognize some indigenous and First Nation sites across the country. That has been missing for some time. And I think it's important for the general public to know, Canadians to know that there are sites that predate Canada itself. There also is kind of part of the history of the land that is called now Canada. And it's important for the general public as well as First Nations people to know about these sites. And I think it's welcoming to finally see that there is this recognition. And I think it should be there all the time. And so it's good to know that this is happening, and it's good to know that in Algonquin territory that this site is being recognized. I think of the site itself, along with other sites and other history, including archaeology, it's a part of the process of showing the occupation and, in my view, ownership of the land and the resources that First Nation and Algonquin people had. Along with archaeology, it demonstrates that our ancestors were here for thousands of years. Pictographs may well be hundreds, maybe thousands of years also, and demonstrates how many art that was quite a number of years back of indigenous people. And it sure looks like is that me? Is that
No.
just thunder because I'm speaking? Lost my train of thought now. That does show, again, some of the views, I guess, of the indigenous people that have painted those pictographs. Well, it's all had to be accessed by boat or by canoe, obviously. And show some of the art over time. And I do have a painting that I bought at a conference a number of years back, which reminded me of the pictographs. And it's so some of the pictures I see looks like a boat or a canoe. You see people standing or sitting in it, and paddles that go look like they're fairly deep in the water. And so I saw this painting, and I wanted to get that painting. I did get it, and I had to call the artist to find out what was the name of it. He didn't have the name. It's Spirit Guide and Family. And it shows, just like the pictograph, it's a family of 5 people, 2 parents and 3 children. And there's a person in the front drumming, and it has a spirit guide perched on the bow. And it looks like we're going across the sky. I think that's where the inspiration probably came from for that painting, is from different pictographs. So I think it's important then, because it demonstrates again that we did have artists with a different kind of worldview, and they demonstrate that in different forms. We have the petroglyphs part, we have the pictographs, that demonstrate that, the indigenous and First Nations people. Also, the red ochre is used in the grave sites of the Algonquins found through archaeology. They show they use red ochre. Red ochre is used quite consistently in burials. And in history, during the contact period, records by the Jesuit missionaries and others of the Algonquins using red ochre, which shows the continuity and of the indigenous and Algonquin people. So anyways, so the recognition, I think, of this is important. It's important now to recognize First Nation and Indigenous sites as part of the history of this land, and then also as part of the history of Canada. So I just want to say, very pleased to be working with Parks Canada, with Hugh, to coordinate and finally get this event to happen. Everybody should appreciate that it's an historic, to me it's an historic event. Trying to have this happen and have a plaque that will be there for a long time to show that. So we have the council and chief, and we also have Councillor ourselves in here, and attendance. Councillor Ron Brad couldn't make it. He's not feeling well lately, so he wanted him to be here. But again, I want to thank Parks Canada and Ontario Parks for being here and participating. And I want to thank you all for also being here and being part of this event of recognition and reconciliation. Very much.
So I'd now, Chief White Duck, and I'd now like to invite Dr. Allway to the podium, who will deliver the address on behalf of our Minister, Catherine McKenna.
Great. Hello, everybody, and welcome this afternoon. Chief White Duck, Ms. Gaudry, Mr. Carl, Ms. Patterson, everyone joining us this afternoon. It's an honor to be here on unceded, unsurrendered Algonquin territory at the opening of the annual Algonquin Pikwakanagan Pow. Thank you for your welcome this afternoon. Your ancestors living in the Anishinaabe ways were the first to treat the earth and all that dwell upon it with respect. And it's up to us today to learn more from your ways and to go far beyond our words to actually earn your trust by working faithfully together with you. Your traditions and your knowledge will help us to rethink our ways, become open to new possibilities, and enable us all to protect our natural and cultural heritage. It's a great pleasure for me today, on behalf of the Honourable Catherine McKenna, Minister of the Environment and Climate Change and Minister responsible for Parks Canada, as we officially welcome Mazinaw Pictograph's National Historic Site to Canada's family of commemorated places, persons, and events of national historic significance. Il me fait grand plaisir de me joindre à vous aujourd'hui au nom de Catherine McKenna, ministre de l'Environnement et du Changement climatique et ministre responsable de Parks Canada, alors que nous accueillons officiellement le lieu historique national des peintures rupestres Mazinaw, dans la famille d'un lieu, personnes et événements d'importance historique nationale du Canada. The pictographs themselves are incredible and inspiring for any of us who have seen them. While the location, of course, of the pictographs on a cliff, accessible only by water, means that we can't be there today in person for the ceremony, but we can imagine with wonder and awe as we reflect back on your ancestors creating those paintings so long ago. Given the significance of the paintings and the connection to the Algonquin people, there is no better place to honor the national significance of the Mazinaw pictographs than here at Pikwakanagan Pow. The Government of Canada is working to ensure that Canadians have opportunities to learn about the full scope of our history. And today's ceremony is part of our efforts to share a much broader and more inclusive story of our past than we have in the past. The history and culture of this land reaches back millennia, long before the country we now call Canada. Those early stories and events hold important teachings for us to this day. Today, at many national parks and national historic sites, Parks Canada and Indigenous partners work together to share Indigenous stories. Through partnership, we are learning and creating opportunities for Canadians to better understand and appreciate the cultures and histories of Indigenous peoples in Canada. The Mazinaw pictographs are an integral part of an unfolding story With you sharing your stories of these paintings and inviting us here to share this remarkable history with others, we hope to instill a sense of wonder, appreciation, and an improved understanding. By sharing our histories and the sometimes painful realities of Canada's colonial past together, we can connect, we can be inspired, and we can together develop a better future. The Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada, which Minister McKenna oversees, exists to recognize significant people, places, and events. And at ceremonies like this one, we recognize and share important moments that have shaped our past and our country. Through this, we learn and grow, and we make connections. Today, there are more than 2,000 Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada plaques right across this country. These commemorations illustrate the country's defining moments as we acknowledge and honor the significant people, events, and places of our past. Working with Indigenous partners, my board and the Government of Canada want to ensure that future commemorations fully reflect nationally significant Indigenous contributions to Canada. Designations and plaque unveilings, like the recognition of Mazinaw Pictograph's National Historic Site, start with nominations from individuals and groups. However, as we work on the commemorations together, there is an opportunity to foster a greater understanding between Indigenous peoples in Canada and non-Indigenous Canadians. The Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada has taken steps to increase the number of Indigenous designations made each year. Just a few weeks ago, 3 Indigenous leaders from Ontario were designated as people of national significance. Francis Pikwakanagan Pow, a decorated veteran from the First World War, returned home to Canada to become chief of the Wasauking Singh First Nation and a political organizer who fought for the rights of Indigenous peoples. Onudeo, from the Six Nations of the Grand River, also advocated for Indigenous rights and founded the League of Indians of Canada. Thomas George Tommy Prince was also a prominent Anishinaabe activist and veteran. He pushed hard for the abolition of the Indian Act and respect for existing treaties. Today, we are committed to truth, reconciliation, and the renewal of our country's relationships with Indigenous peoples, based on a recognition of rights, respect, cooperation, and partnership. Today, we are recognizing a National Historic Site that has existed as a place of significance for thousands of years. And on behalf of the Government of Canada, and following the recommendation of the Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada, I am proud to present this plaque as a symbol of recognition and celebration of Mazinaw Pictograph's role in Canadian history. Our heritage is made up of places of special significance, breathtaking landscapes, and unforgettable historic events. I encourage all Canadians to visit the many remarkable and moving National Historic Sites right across Canada. They reflect who we are as a people and as a country. It is by walking in the footsteps of history that we learn more about our shared national heritage in this land called